if I stutter a lot this episode, it's because I haven't recorded an episode in like 6 months. Okay, so bear with me as I struggle my ass off to come up with words. It's gonna be bad. Welcome back to another episode of In the Mirror. It has been 6 months since I've recorded a podcast episode. I know it's been 5 months, but I felt like it'd be a better title if I'd said six. um, I feel like there's so much to talk about. So many life changes in the last 6 months. And I really want to get back to posting on here pretty frequently. I know I said that before and then I took the longest hiatus ever. But because so much has changed, I feel like I have a lot more time to dedicate to this. But let's backtrack real quick because I feel like it's not talked about enough how much of your life can flip upside down in practically a heartbeat. Because I think 6 months ago, when I stopped filming episodes of this podcast, I was a little bit burnt out of creating like meaningful content. And I was trying to figure out my groove in the creative space. I think that often comes with wanting to do a lot of different things. Like, I want to be here making music, and then I want to be here live streaming, and then I want to be here making money. And, oftentimes because of that, I'm going from A to B to C interchangeably, almost as if I'm not dedicating enough time to one, which I do think is true. I think oftentimes when you're trying to find your groove, it's attempting everything and stopping at no means to figure something out. But it gets really tiring, 6 months ago, what was that? July, August. Um, I was posting on here. I was in the process of making music. I was hustling side jobs to barely make ends meet. And then I was live streaming because I felt obligated to, because it had been kind of part of my life for the last 3 years. So I guess that's like perspective into the general picture, right? That's not even to include life outside of the online internet space, like managing relationships with friends and dating and all that. And we'll get into all that in a little bit. But I think at the forefront of everything is just trying to make things work. That's where I was 6 months ago, like just trying to figure it out. And I don't think I was my proudest knowing, like internally, right? Like this is not some thought that I'm overtly thinking of every single day. But I think internally, I felt very much like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Why have I'm so proud of myself for dedicating myself to my craft. But at the same time, part of me is like, am I throwing my life away? That's really how it felt 6 months ago. Like there's other factors of my life that I want to get to at some point. And if I'm so caught up in trying to quote, make it, and I don't even think like that half the time. I think like, how do I make meaningful work? Then am I caught up too much in like the purpose of everyday life? Is that like crazy mundane idea to think about? Should I be like just making money and like figuring out how to support myself again? And that was like my never ending battle, I think, the last 6 months. Which is why probably around July and August I stopped posting on here because I felt like maybe it felt a little unproductive to share parts of myself online when I really should have been focusing on finding ways to like figure this life shit out. Like why am I sharing this on the internet when I should be just doing it instead? I don't know if that makes sense. But now we fast forward 6 months later, and it's always crazy to me to think about what, like, you can never predict anything in life, but in some weird way, there's this, like, these telltale signs that kind of pop up out of nowhere. Like, everything happens for a reason, right? Like, I'm a firm believer in that. Maybe people think I'm crazy for suggesting that the world and the universe puts things into motion for a reason, but I do believe that. Especially because the last 6 months of my life have been, I don't want to even call it like a movie, but it feels too good to be true, also, isn't the words. It just feels like a full circle. And I certainly feel grateful for all the ups and downs of the last like 4 years. And I say all this to hopefully make whoever it is that's listening to this podcast, whether through their ears or if you see me through the lens. I say all this to hopefully inspire people to stay true to who they are and what they do. Because I think so often people tell you how to live your life and what way to approach things, but there's no like right way. The only right path is how you live it. And I think in the last couple years, I've taken such a risk in putting myself out there, but more like, I guess specifically, I feel like I put myself out there with like this all eggs in one basket mindset. Like, I'm committed to my craft to like a fault. And that's scary to, I think, a lot of people. Like, my friends, I was talking to my friend the other day about, like, I think we were talking about how do you lock in, and like where I struggle is like maintaining relationships in my life, whereas for her, one of her struggles is like dedicating time to the things that she loves, that are hobbies that maybe she wants to turn into, a life passion or her work one day. And, I was explaining to her that I think from the outside, I know her perspective of like my life is I'm this really like determined person who like found a way to like make it work in a creative field. Like, a lot of people are quite quote quote impressed with, I guess, the way I move about my craft. But when I think about myself, like from an internal perspective, I often feel like I'm not doing enough, and or I very much feel like I'm just always on the pursuit of learning from my mistakes. So it's not even like this dedication to my craft as much as it is this dedication to myself. Like, how do I continue to allow myself to grow in ways that aren't just financial? There's the financial end too, but I want to always consider ways for myself to better as an artist, as a creative. And sometimes that's through like real life shared experiences, and sometimes that's within like the skills of my trade, right? If it's filmmaking, like it's picking up a camera every day. If it's music making, it's studying people's music. It's studying how to make music. It's figuring out sounds. It's experimenting. It's like, that's how I think, right? Same thing with streaming. It's like I'll go back and I used to like watch my VODs all the time and like pick it apart, not because I'm trying to self-criticize or judge myself, or even if I'm dedicated to the craft, I just am on the pursuit of like, how do I get better? Like, I want to be able to like the best version of myself on a no comparison game. It's just me versus myself. And in kind of that process, sometimes shit just gets so complicated where you forget to take 5 steps back and you go like, holy shit, like, like one of those like late night 3 a.m. moments where you sit still. Those are like the biggest fears for me because I definitely had a couple of those in the last 6 months where, you know, I'll finish all the shit ton of work that I do and then I'll lay on my bed and go, today I spent my entire day filming, a podcast, streaming, editing, and all that for what? Like, what, to be happy? Like, is that really that cool? Like, should I be like going out and living life and like making money? Like, not only am I throwing relationships away, but I'm also doing it to self improve. But there's no money. And there's also like no there's no success, there's no money, there's no like the sacrifice is crazy, you know? Like I'm sacrificing a shit ton of life for this. And so I think in that process, the last I can't even say 6 months. There's really been like a couple years, like ever since I started streaming in 2022. I feel like the emotions have strengthened over time. And, what wasn't such a big deal in 2022 felt like a really big deal in 2026, 2025, 2026. I sat there and I went like, it's been 4 years. I've dabbled in a lot of different things. And where are we? Like, we're not making money doing this. If we were making money, we stopped making money doing it. We took 1 foot out of the industry that was paying us. And for what? Like, you took this leap, and for what return? And you start thinking, like, all the promises that you made yourself, like the promise that you made for yourself, for your family. Like, I'm doing this for my mother, or I'm doing this to put my future children in a better position, and I'm doing this. Like, all of those thoughts kind of catch up to you, and you go, dang, I'm 26. Oh, I'm not 26 yet. Thank God. I'm still young, even though I got called Unk the other day by my cousin, but it's fine. I'm 25. Which, you start, I guess there's this expectation that you have to have part of your life figured out. You probably should be moved out by 25. You should probably, like, have your shit in line. And weirdly, that kind of stuff doesn't scare me, but when I lay there and really, really think about it at, like, 3 a.m., I'm like, fuck. Like, I'm not where I want to be. And I can't even say it makes me sad as much as it's like frustrating. So I think there's been a lot of frustration in the last year, right? So it's funny how life works, really, right? You go through all of that, all these emotions, the highs, the lows, and then for whatever reason, life throws you like, I don't even know if it's a safety line, or a harness that comes down. It just like grabs you. You're like, holy shit, like, I really needed this right now. I really needed this right now. Like, you gave me a parachute right before I smacked the ground and broke all my bones from jumping off a plane. You know what I mean? Like, I just like fully jumped out of a plane in one of those squirrel suits, knowing that, like, what are the chances for survival? And then some random instructor guy that I've never met just jumped down with me and grabbed me before I broke, like, my tibia or something, Like, that's what it felt like. And I laugh because, I think if you would ask me, for one, if you ask me 6 to 8 months ago, if I expected myself to be where I'm at right now, I'd be like, no. But if you asked me like 4 years ago, I would have been like, yes, obviously. But 8 months ago, I've been like, no, there's no chance because there's so many steps I need to get to even before like there. You know what I mean? Um, so first off, I guess let me break down what's changed in the last 6 months because I'm giving you all this context and you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, what has changed? um, well, for one, I'm employed now. Oh my god, I feel like I could do like a whole clap for that. Um, yeah, I'm employed. I think I think a while ago I was scared of the thought of being an employee again cuz I've been through like working for somebody else for quite a bit, both in like a freelance situation, contractor position, employee hire, like I've been, in the ropes of all of that. There's pros and cons in everything, right? Like if you're an employee, there's a little bit more sense of security than if you're a freelancer. If you're a freelancer, there's a little bit more sense of freedom in choosing your work, but at the expense of, you know, all the pros that come with being an employee. Like, you get home and you're like, how do I navigate the next step? Security isn't as easy, and like it's a little bit more of a hustle and a grind, and what feels safe today, 5 years later might not be. Um, so I've been through kind of all the hurdles. I've done the whole run your own business thing. Like I had a wedding company and I was filming weddings, and that was really fun, and I was really good at it, and I was making really good money. But like I really just didn't enjoy it like that. Like I didn't enjoy the business end of that. I enjoyed filming weddings, and that's about it. So, kind of being in all the ropes, I think I've understood what things I enjoy in each. And I think the last 4 years have been a self discovery of figuring out what makes sense for me, right? And I think, especially in the last 6 months, there was this like weight on my shoulders of I know that I don't want to work for anyone. But, and I think this is the big point, right? But I would want to work for someone that I was passionate about the work for, and also was in a position where I had the creative fulfillment to commit to it. Because I've been in positions where I was the employee, I was told I had this creative freedom, and then I get there and I don't. And then you start going, I don't have creative freedom. I'm getting paid like whatever, and I have to work on someone else's time. Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm not gonna do that respectfully, right? Like, that's no knock on anyone who does. It just doesn't sit well with me. Like, I'm sitting here, not even just from a money standpoint, but I'm gonna use this as the example. I'm sitting here making more money for my boss when I could do all of this for myself and really hustle and make it and make that money for myself and have creative freedom. Why would I do that for them who clearly doesn't respect my creative integrity, right? Now, I say that to say the working for yourself end and building something for yourself end is a lot harder than just doing it, right? Like, I've been doing this for 4 years. So I recognize that in my discovery of figuring out what works, what doesn't, what I enjoy, what makes sense for me, I've acknowledged it's a lot harder to do things your way, right? Because there's like several different things, several different factors that alter how you want to approach stuff, right? Like it's a lot easier to tell someone else who it's not their vision what works, what makes sense, what you should do, right? Like when I'm working for someone else, I can literally break down Like I'm going to use content, for example, because it's pretty like, I think it's a good example. It's so easy as an outsider to tell someone what to do. Like you're just criticizing their work. You're criticizing what makes sense. You're criticizing what's going to do well. Like it's easy because you have no emotional connection to whatever it is that's being made, you know? Um, and I don't think that's a good or a bad thing. I don't use criticize in a bad way. I use it as like a statement to say that this is much easier because you don't have, like, it's not your baby. There's this saying that I learned in college that's actually helped me a lot as an artist is your first couple ideas that you come up with. This is like a web design class I took in college. The first couple ideas that you have, like those first immediate thoughts, like, oh, I want to do this. And you get so fixated on it because you think it's a good idea. It's one of your first ideas. It's like the thing that came to you, right? And you start breaking it down and all this. And in that class specifically, our professor made us do all that, commit to that, and then told us, scrap it. Like, toss it. Like, you're not allowed to use that idea. And, like, I wouldn't say I was frustrated, but I was like, damn, put on all that work. Like, what do you mean, scrap it? Like, what the hell? Like, bro, like, I just wrote, like, an essay on this shit. Like, you had me write an essay on a fucking website. Like, this is crazy, But then I got what he meant because we grow this attachment to our ideas, our inventions, our pursuit of whatever it is that we want to pursue, that it clouds your perception of what's good and what's bad, what's successful. And I don't think that's always that's not a bad or a good thing. It's just something that happens, right? And in tossing that idea out and coming up with new ideas, you're having to dig deeper, right? You don't get fixated on that world. You have to backtrack and go like, okay, you think about things more analytically, maybe more systematically. Like you can look at things as an external figure as opposed to someone who's like engulfed in their own thoughts. And I bring that up because that's very true in like the employee workplace, right? Is you're working to facilitate an idea created by not you. That can either be a great thing or it could be like demoralizing as hell, right? Like, especially if you're brought on with the intent that you know what you're doing, like you're specialized, right? I think it's different if you're like learning in a process of like training. Maybe you're like an intern or an entry level role. But I think when you get brought on like a higher up creative level, you are hopeful that people will trust your instincts a little bit more. So I think that was my struggle, right? Like navigating that creative trust and working in a space that I was passionate about. And then in the last 6 months, it kind of landed in my lap. I mean, I won't talk about it a ton because I feel like we could save it for another podcast episode and we're kind of fresh into it. So, maybe I lose the job in the next couple months and then there wouldn't be a story to tell. But I do think it's important in this conversation. But I recently picked up a job as a creative director on Phantom, the streamer, his team. The role is specifically for like short form media, but I think in any job, any role, like sometimes there's overlap, like whether that's between stream creative, whether that's between production creative, like there's certainly overlap, right? I laugh because I remember a year ago, intentionally turning down seats where I would work for another like streamer. Um, it was actually like brought up upon me from some friends in the streamer space that like, oh, I should like take the Broden. I don't know if y'all know Broden from like offline TV, like his approach and work with streamers in producing content. And I'm a firm believer that like there's a time and a place for when you commit to certain things. Like if you're not feeling it in your heart, why commit? Like I'm not gonna take a job just for money, or I'm not gonna take a job just because I'm like, oh, this would better my connections. Like hell no, right? I want it in my heart to make sense. Like trust your gut, right? So there's like been certain situations where opportunities have been thrown at me, or like um you see hiring calls and you're like, oh, like that fits me. But at the time, a year ago, I was dedicated to building my own like streaming empire, right? So I think at the time, I didn't want to entertain the idea because it wouldn't be true and genuine. Like I would simply be working with these people to better myself and then leave, is how I see it at the time. Um, and why would I do that? Like that's not only fake, but I do think it's kind of like wrong to take a job and then, jump ship. And I know that's like very common in the workplace today, but um I don't know. I'm a loyal motherfucker. So like more honest than loyalty, really. I just feel very dishonest doing that. So, 6 months ago I wasn't ready for that. Um and then fast forward, you know, I think picking up new creative hobbies, doing other things, still streaming. Um, I think maybe my perspective changed a little bit. Like what felt like a burden or impossible before made a lot more sense. So let me break it down like this. Um, you know, I I've tried to figure out this streaming thing for a while, and I think I've changed my perspective over time. Where maybe 3 years ago, I was of the belief that being true and honest as a creative is what's going to get me to the next level. And I still think that is generally true. But um streaming's a competitive space, you know what I mean? And if I can't be the best version of myself as a streamer, the perspective change the perspective changes on whether or not I should commit myself to being a streamer. I like streaming. I still want to do it, right? But do I want to be a streamer is a different question. And I think in the process of the last couple of years, um, doing this on a full-time scheduled basis and then, coming back down to part-time, the things I have realized is what was true from day one is still true. I enjoy my time offline. I like being private. I don't want to be a streamer's streamer. Like I don't want to be the workhorse streamer. I don't want to go on live and then live my life on camera. I want to live my life offline and then have things to share. And that was true on day one when I started streaming. Like I remember having a conversation with myself and going like, I value my privacy. Why would I like overtly commit to showing all of my life on camera? Like I don't need to stream 6 days a week. Maybe we go on stints where we do, but like I don't want to do that all the time. That's like realization number one. Realization number two is going, let's be real, right? I do not have the funds to be the best streamer. right? It's an investment in your craft to get better. That's not to say that you can't, by the way. It's not to say that you can't be a big streamer by grinding. But I do think that I got lost in the grind, as in, I felt like I could make it if I just worked harder. And some things are just out of your control, right? Like, you can be as honest as you can, unless you're chasing numbers, and I don't chase numbers like that, I'm not going to get to that point, right? Like, I have, back to the whole child philosophy, like this is your baby. Streaming's my baby, but more specifically, my baby is being honest as a streamer. I wanted to make it as myself. And maybe people are going to disagree with this take, but sometimes yourself is not going to be the thing that gets you there. Sometimes it's playing things up. Sometimes it's scripting content. Sometimes it's formulating content in a way that targets the majority of eyes, and then you can dial back after, right? Like, you can be more yourself once you have attention. Like, attention's the name of the game in content. And if you're not doing things to get attention, then you're going to have a small community. And I'm grateful that I never scurried away from, like, my true roots. Because if I played the inauthentic game, who would know how mindfucked I am right now? I'm just being so for real, okay? So I guess that's realization number 2 is authenticity sells, but maybe not in streaming, right? Which is why I kind of like started playing up my streams a little bit more and going like, let me take this in all like the authentic part of myself, like the true, like non-comedic, like day-to-day, like that's also me, right? Like, that's like the comedic version of me and like the entertainer version of me, but it's not like the me, my mind philosophy kind of approach. So like, maybe I need to take that part and incorporate it in other mediums, whether it's my music or this podcast. And I started to really enjoy that, like the separation. Like, this is me, head thoughts. Music is me, feelings and emotions and art. And then streaming is me, like, fuck it, I'm an entertainer. This is comedic. This is all for laughs and giggles and shits, right? And I was like, wait, this took a weight off my shoulders. It was like, I'm not trying to be 5 million different things on stream. I'm just trying to be an entertainer on stream. And then on the other stuff, I can be all the other components. And maybe in those realizations, that's when I was like, if streaming is not as much as a prio, right? Then why would I not want to work with someone else in being the entertainer, right? That's where I think that secondary skills that I came up with, like the filmmaking, the strategy, the business that I used to do prior to streaming, that's where I was like, okay, maybe it's time to fit into that puzzle piece a little bit still. Like, still do your own thing, but like, you have still a purpose in that world to help create entertainment for someone else. And that's not a bad thing. So back to the conversation of how much can change in 6 months, absolutely everything. But perspective is number 1, right? Like, nothing changes overnight unless you have a different perspective of whether how things work or how you want to approach things. But you, in mindset, need to alter your mind first, right? And for me, that happened. The last 6 months, I feel like I've changed my opinion on how I approach the world of media and entertainment. I think for a very long time, I wanted to build this because it was my baby. But I realized that that's going to be like a lifelong adventure, right? Like, if I compare my art to like an actual child, it's like raising a kid, Your job doesn't stop at 18. Like, when a kid turns 18, to me, your job continues. Like, you still need to maintain a relationship with that kid. I'm not saying you need to like do all the other shit, like I guess that's, like the housing and all that stuff is subjective, right? Like to each their own, each household. Like some people be like 18, get your ass out of here and go find a job. But from a relationship standpoint, like that's your kid, right? Like you still need to maintain some form of a like experience with them. Like you need to be able to have like some form of connectivity, you know, and or lack thereof, right? Like that's up to you. So when I frame it like that, I go like my lifelong adventure of figuring out who I am as an artist, that's never ending. Like that's never going to stop whether I take a job or not. Like no matter what, that circumstance stays the same. And I know that like me at 25 versus me at 60, I hope I'm still trying to figure out like how to get better, you know? I'm sure there's some things that I want to come to peace with, but there's certainly some things where I'm like, how can I change, you know? Um, so in that, why not also help other people? Like, you already know you're going to focus on your goals from now to forever. What's the problem with now being paid to also help others? Like, helping others is already enough, but like, imagine you can make money and have a job and have a career doing it. Like, so I think I came to terms with saying, like, no, I'm still meant for that side of things. Like, I'm still meant to not necessarily be in front of the camera. Like, because I do like my privacy. I do like that end of things where like I still can be myself in the world without as much attachment, without as much criticism, without as much, I don't have to be the product. Someone else is the product. Like they're the person with eyes on them, and I can help them grow and build. Um, and better yet, even more so, like we're not talking about just any creator. We're talking about being in a position to work with a creator who has the ability to grow, because they've already built the infrastructure, right? Like it's not like an up and coming creator who may not be able to, not that pay is everything, but it's nice to be able to feel rewarded for your work, but more importantly, have the means to create the ideas that you want to create. I think oftentimes that's a lot of the struggle, right? Like you have to put yourself in a box. Like I'm so used to dancing in a box and going like, okay, what things work within these budget constraints, which is a skill, because I do think everyone should think like that, because that's like how you get shit done when you're young and early in the media and entertainment game. I did it for so long with film, but now being able to work with Phantom, who's been doing this for freaking, what is it? I don't even know, to be honest. He's been on YouTube for so long, streamer for so long. Certainly coming up on a decade, probably, like close. To work with someone like that, who has the means to invest back into their content. Like, I don't have to dance in a box so much. It's like creatively, probably some of the most fulfilling work that I've been able to do, because it's like, instead of it being like, oh, what can we do? It's like, what do we want to do? Like your desire, right? Again, I don't want to fixate on the topic, but I do have to be very grateful for that falling into my lap, like how much can change in 6 months? Absolutely everything. Something I never thought I was going to do kind of just went poosh. And it was a series of events. It was natural, it wasn't like it wasn't a social climb. It wasn't like I did it my way. Like I wasn't milking connections to get there. I wasn't trying to talk to people to get into people's ears. I didn't, like, it wasn't one of those situations. It just naturally happened over time, right? Like I think about it like this. If I would have never gone to the streaming space, in 2022, I would have never met creators. I would have never done a streamer competition to meet people. I would have never found my enjoyment and lack thereof in the streamer experience. I would have never had the change of perspective if it weren't for all the weird internet shit that I dealt with, right? Like that timeline like a year and a half ago where it made me like value my privacy more. Um, and for context, if you are hearing this episode for the first time and you don't know anything about that world, um, you know, people on the internet are weird. And sometimes they invade your privacy, and that's frustrating. And I dealt with a little bit of that. And I think I started to feel a little bit bitter towards streaming. It was like, damn, like for as much as I love this, some people do ruin that experience. But if it weren't for that, I wouldn't have the change of perspective to say like, oh, I still do value my privacy a shit ton, right? And in that, that made me go like, I do still want to work with other people where I'm not the product and I can still help them. And then on a happen chance, because I am familiar with the space, I reached out because I saw that they were in need of a creative director. I had seen one of the people in their like circle at an event, and we were talking about it, and I think the conversation came up that Fandom was looking for a creative director for short form media, and it so happened that I did a lot of short form media for myself and other people in the last couple of years, and I was able to already learn a lot, and now I can bring those skills to this job. So I think I'm grateful for the 4-5 year risk, right? Because who's to say if we would be in this seat if it weren't for all that? You know, like you have to still take chances. So I wouldn't change any of that. You know, if you would ask me if I would change the last 4 years, I would say no. If you would ask me if I would change the last 6 months, I would say no. You know, it all fits a part of the puzzle piece. It's all a part of the game. That's just the work end. God, is it gonna be a long podcast episode? That's the work end. Is wow. 4 years ago, you were hustling, trying to be a streamer, averaging like 3 average viewers. You go through a little stint. 4 years later, you're working with arguably a top 10 biggest streamer in the world and helping him grow. Like, to me, and this is genuine, like I'm not playing this up for camera, I'm eternally grateful for them being able to trust me in bringing me in and like being able to trust a little bit my creative vision. You know, like obviously there's, you know, higher ups you report to and whatnot, but like to be able to feel trusted, would not trade that for anything. You know, like trust is earned. That's how I think about it. Trust is earned, so is respect. So to be given it, even a little bit, even an ounce, to me means probably more than money or anything else. It's you trusting me to help grow. I don't think there's anything that can replace trust, right? Like that's the foundation to loyalty is that. So, you know, I think first and foremost, like I hope everyone takes that experience and recognizes like stay true to yourself, stay grounded, keep working, because you don't know how things find the way to you. Sometimes shit just happens and it lines up. And for me in the last 6 months, although it's been absolutely crazy, somehow, some magical way, it made sense. You know, full circle moment. Now we'll scurry through all this, the rest of this, because the other 6 months and of things, there's other factors where I'm like, oh, Maybe that's a negative change in the last 6 months, but we'll acknowledge it. We'll acknowledge it. You know, in July and August, not only was I unemployed, I was going through a little bit of a heartbreak, you know? And this could be a whole episode in itself, but I think it's worth updating, right? I've been gone for a little bit, and, we're on the topic of change and how much can change in a short amount of time. I felt miserable 6 months ago. It was bad. Like, I don't know if my friends noticed or if the internet noticed, but I was like going through it. I don't remember the last time I was going through it like that. From a romantic standpoint. But 6 months later, I think one of the beauties of time is clarity. Not to say that I didn't know that before. I certainly think 6 months ago I felt like I understood what was going through on, but maybe I had a little bit of like emotions attached to the situation that I was dealing with. And so maybe it was harder to accept then, right? Whereas, now we're in February of 2026. Oh my God, it's already in 2026. I promise I'll post more. And I feel I can't say I don't feel the weight of that experience, because I think everything sticks with you, right? Whether heavy or not, it does, still live in you. It's a part of your experience. But I certainly can move on with my life now and continue to live and seek, Your boy is in the attempt to date again. I think that's good, right? Like, to be able to put myself out there again and say 6 months later, I'm willing and able to, and willing to move at the pace that I'm comfortable. Like, to me, that's progress. And I think in any case, if you're able to progress, that's a win. So I'll take that. I'll take that. I hope none of y'all are having crazy bad effects from love. Because I think back 6 months ago and I'm like, holy shit, I feel for that kid. He was going through it. He was really struggling, man. Poor dude. No, we're okay. We're okay. And that's, I guess, the beauty of time, right? In even a short amount of time. Just like that, right? And that's love. I guess the last thing I really want to talk about before I wrap this episode up is hobbies, relationships with people. I mean, 6 months ago, I feel like I was trying to find this balance between hobby, craft, friends, family. And now 6 months later, I feel like we're just in a different chapter of things, right? Where maybe I recognize balance is still not easy. Like, it'll never be easy. It's like a never-ending figure-out moment. But you take it as it comes, Like, I think I don't put too much or as much pressure on myself to have it all figured out, like, tomorrow, I don't have to plan out time as much. Like, I used to be super fixated on, trying to make time for everything and, like a calendar, and I still am like that a little bit, I can't lie. I still like to stay on top of things a little bit. But, it's not as, overwhelming. I think maybe before I put so much pressure on myself to, be perfect with balance that in the process maybe I was hypercritical of myself or overanalyzed how people read how I spent my time. Like, if a family member was frustrated that I couldn't spend time with the family on like a holiday, my initial instinct would be like, what the fuck? Like I'm trying to dedicate so much time. Like I would be frustrated, right? Whereas now it's like, all right, whatever. Like you're just frustrated. Like cool. Take it out on someone else. Like I don't care. I don't care. Like this is how much time I'm able to give. If it works for you, it works for you. If not, if it's fine. Which maybe that's bad in some people's eyes. Maybe I've become more nonchalant, as the kids say. But I do think sometimes like you just got a lot of shit going on, and like sometimes you gotta just take the weight off heaviness. It doesn't have to be so heavy. Like it just can exist as what it is. So yeah, am I perfect with balance of time right now? Absolutely not, bro. I've put so much more time into my career um in the last couple months and prioritizing what I feel is right. I've probably spent a little bit more time like with my love life than which takes away time from other stuff. Um and maybe for other people they're like he's not putting enough time into to me, but that's just where we're at this stage of our life. It's nothing personal. um it's not like it's not weight. Hopefully people don't read it as that. um so yeah, I think if you ask me the question how much can change in 6 months, absolutely everything. um I do want to do this podcast more often. So I am going to be back on a weekly schedule. Aren't you so proud of me? I'm going to do it. I'm going to commit. And then disappear again for another 5 months. No, I actually am. I expect to do this podcast more often. I will be here every Friday again. We're back on the every Friday grind. Every Friday. Surely. And then maybe I'll slide in some extras. I don't know. We'll see how you feel. I'm making money now, so I'm not as concerned, like with other shit. And there's a little bit less weight on everything. I feel like I can designate some time to this again. But in terms of big passions right now, I just think I want to make music, live life, and share my life here, So that's how I'm approaching this content journey right now. I hope that in me sharing whatever life experience that I'm going through, people can resonate still. I hope that's always been my thing. This to me has been a platform to be myself, completely, and just voice my head thoughts. So the more I can do that, I guess, the more of a win it is, right? It, again, doesn't have to be such a heavy thing. I'm not trying to put any pressure on myself to commit to anything really, but I just want to be myself on camera. I just want to be myself. What's the song called? I just want to be myself. Who's that by? I don't know. Anyways, if you haven't already, god dang, I gotta do this like ending thing again, right? What's it called? What do the YouTuber people say? Like the podcast, like this video, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to Life of Sky on YouTube if you haven't already. If you want to see the video podcast, I'll be back next week. We'll be back next week, baby. We're back on it. Yeah. And we'll see where the podcast takes us. Maybe we're here. Maybe we're in another country. Maybe we're, I don't know. We're writing it out. We'll see how things go. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoy. Take care of yourself. And I'll see you all next week. Yeah. Peace.